Okay, let's try to connect some dots here. You have a massive deployment of F-15s heading to the Middle East.
Right.
Then you have a renewed bid to buy Greenland. And on top of all that, an invitation for, of all people, Vladimir Putin, to join a so-called Gaza Peace Council.
Yeah, on the surface, it looks completely chaotic. It's like 3 different puzzles.
It really does. But the reports we're looking at from this week in January 2026, they suggest there's actually a single story here.
There is. What we're seeing is a pretty clear shift. The old era of fixed alliances seems to be ending, and what's replacing it is, well, the era of the deal.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, to see how the military posturing, this territorial ambition, and some really controversial diplomacy all fit together.
And we should probably start with the military side, because things are getting very crowded in the desert.
They are. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group is on the move, which is a big deal in itself. But it's the air power that caught my eye.
You're talking about the F-15E Strike Eagles.
Exactly. Those and the KC-135 Stratotankers deploying from the UK. That's a very specific, very offensive-looking mix.
It is. The F-15E is the backbone, as one analyst put it. It's like a heavy-hitting truck. It carries a huge payload.
But the Stratotankers, they're the real tell, aren't they?
That's the key. You don't bring in aerial tankers for defense. You bring them to keep your fighters in the air for a long, long time, probably deep inside enemy territory.
And it's not just in the air. We're also seeing reports of M1 Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, C-17s for logistics. It feels like they're preparing for something on the ground.
Or at least making the threat of a ground scenario incredibly credible. No one's officially saying this is for Iran, but the scale of it sends a very strong signal to Tehran.
So in the desert, it's the threat of military force. But then let's pivot to the Arctic, where the weapon of choice seems to be economic. Trump is talking about Greenland again.
I know you'd think we'd move past that. But at Davos on January 21st, he didn't just mention it, he framed it as a strategic necessity.
A large piece of ice that's a strategic necessity.
Right. But here's the twist. He explicitly said he wouldn't use military force to take it.
Oh, well, that's a relief.
I wouldn't get too comfortable. Instead, he threatened tariffs. He basically said there would be economic consequences for any EU nations that support Denmark's refusal to sell.
And that explains the reaction from Europe. Kaja Kallas, the EU's top diplomat, was furious. She said the island is simply not for sale.
And Denmark is responding with more than just words. They've announced a new $2 billion defense plan. They're buying drones, satellites.
To prove they can secure it themselves?
Exactly. The message is, we don't need you to buy us to keep us safe.
It's all so tense, but I think the wildest development this week has to be this Gaza Peace Council, the guest list. I mean, I had to read it twice.
It's certainly a disruptor. So the administration announces this new council. The invitees include people you might expect, like Jared Kushner and Tony Blair.
Okay.
But then they also invited Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Wait, pause. Putin, and I saw reports that Lukashenko from Belarus is also involved. That sounds less like a peace council and more like a fever dream.
It does. But look at the strategy here. Lukashenko has already signed on. For him, this is huge. It basically ends his international isolation overnight.
So by putting Putin and Lukashenko at the same table, the administration is just ignoring the last decade of sanctions and war crimes indictments.
It's saying those moral lines don't matter as much as the deal. It's purely transactional. And the EU and the UN are, as you can imagine, deeply concerned.
They must be. This completely bypasses the UN Security Council.
It creates a sort of VIP club where entry is by invitation only. It fits right in with Trump's speech at Davos, where he was blasting European green energy and immigration policies.
So let's tie this all together. You have military threats in the Middle East, economic threats in the Arctic, and a new diplomatic council that sidelines traditional allies and includes adversaries.
And it all points back to that shift we mentioned. We're moving away from institutions like NATO and the UN and into a world of bilateral deals. Historical allies can be threatened, and historical adversaries can be invited in if it serves a purpose.
It really forces every other country to recalculate its position, doesn't it? The old rulebook is gone.
It is. In this new landscape, it seems anything is possible as long as the deal is right.
That is a lot for us to think about, and we want to hear your take. Do you think a peace council involving Putin and Lukashenko is a masterstroke of disruption, or is it just a recipe for disaster? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.